Okay, right, welcome to part 3 of this little updated video series on my current studio setup. So we're going to look at the MIDI connections on this one, which is a little bit more complicated. Now, if you've seen my previous videos, you will know I'm a big fan of the old notebook, because I have to write everything down, otherwise I forget, and I can't remember what's routed where. So I'm just going to talk you through sort of all the MIDI connections. It's basically connected so everything is synchronized together, and what I wanted to do was to be able to sequence all of the hardware, so all of this from the Electribe. And how I've got it set up, it does that. So I'll try and talk through how I sort of do it. So I'll just stop the screensaver thing going on there. So I use my TR8 as my master clock. So when I press play on here, let's just turn this down a little bit. Or not, turn it down too much. Ooh, let's try again. Okay, sorry, for some reason I've got it set on 42 beats per minute. Anyway, let's try again. Okay, so everything starts playing. It's all on random settings, so it sounds awful at the moment. But everything starts playing, all the step sequences and everything. So I have to make sure I've kind of got certain stuff muted that I don't want to play when I'm writing, etc., etc. But yeah, TR8's the master clock. And I've got a weird ticking noise from somewhere. Where's that coming from? Okay, yeah, I've got rid of the weird ticky noise. It was, I'd knocked the delay thing and it was on full, so it was just something was on a massive delay thing. So anyway, right, so this is how I kind of map my MIDI stuff. So we've got the outs and the ins. Now some gear, the Roland gear all has MIDI through, the Korg gear doesn't. And I've had a rant about this before. In my opinion, everything should have MIDI through. It would make life a hell of a lot easier, but it doesn't. But anyway. So we're starting with the MX1. So what we're doing is we're taking the MIDI out of the MX1, and that's going to the input of the Electribe. So we're taking MIDI out of here, standard 5-pin MIDI cable, and that's going to the input of the Electribe. I'll just turn that on so I can demonstrate stuff in a second. What we're then doing is we're taking the output of the Electribe, and that's going to the MIDI in of the TR8. Coming out of the TR8 on the output, I've got one of these MIDI splitters. So these cost a few quid off eBay, and I've not had any issues with these at all. They seem to work really well. So by doing that, I've got 2 MIDI outputs from there. I've kind of routed it this way because of getting the MIDI through stuff. So basically what's happening is when I press play on the TR8, because that's connected to the MX1 via USB, that's sending clock information out. All right, and that makes the MX1 start playing. The MX1 is then sending its message out to the Electribe, which starts that playing, and then this is kind of like the start of all the MIDI through. Okay, so it all comes from this. So everything's going to pass through basically for now. So any MIDI information I send out of here is going to go into the TR8. It's going to pass through that and go to the next thing in the chain and pass through that and so on. So I've got 2 outputs coming from the TR8 through that splitter, which I've just showed you. So output A is going to the mini log, right? So it's one of those outputs going to the mini log. So that means if I send some MIDI information from the Electribe, it's going to pass through the TR8 and it's going to go to the mini log. It's not going to go any further. That's the end of the chain on that output. The second output from the TR8 is going into the System 8. Okay, so it's just going to the MIDI in of the System 8 again on the standard 5-pin MIDI cable. So the System 8 also has MIDI through. So I'm doing the same thing on this. I've got a splitter cable coming from the output of the the System 8. One of those is going over to the Volca bass over here. Let's just turn these on just so I can demonstrate everything in a sec. So where were we? Yeah, so one of the outputs is going over to the Volca bass. Again, that is then the end of that MIDI chain because the Volca bass doesn't have MIDI through. But then I'm sending the second output from the System 8 up to the TB03 because again, it's Roland. It has MIDI through. Got another splitter coming out from the back of the TB03. So you can see I've got splitters going into splitters, but it seems to work okay. One of those outputs is going to the input of the Volca keys, and the second output is going down here. Don't know if you can see it. Okay, so just here you can see that red there, you can just about see that. I've got this MIDI through box, like a MIDI splitter. So this one here is the MIDI in, so that's what's coming from the output of the TB03, and then it gives you, you've got one there, one at that end, and 3 there. So it gives you 5 outputs, and again it's MIDI through, so everything passes through that. So the first output from that is going to the input of the microbrute. The second output of that is going over to the MS-20 over there. The third output from that is going to the MB33, and the fourth output is going in here to the MIDI to CV module on the modular synth. And that's basically all the MIDI connections. So I've got one more spare, I think, on that, so I could use another one with that. So when you're planning these, it's just trying to imagine your flow of MIDI as being a flow of water. Okay, and when it gets to a synth that doesn't have MIDI through, that's kind of like a dam. It stops it flowing any further. So you've got to work out your flow of MIDI and get throughs in the correct places. So that basically means if I go over onto the, I'm just going to turn the volume down on the Electribe. Okay, so this is the Electribe. So I'm not, this has got no sounds coming from the Electribe now. And I've got to try and remember my MIDI channels. So MIDI channel 1, so that, let's turn this up a little bit. Okay, so that is playing the MS-20 over there. If I play the same sound on here, okay, come back over here, you can hear it's playing the same sound. So when I then switch into keyboard mode on the Electribe, okay, I can sequence it and I can play the MS-20 from over here. So if I go back onto trigger, channel 2 is playing the MB33. Let me just, because I've not got this pedal on at the moment, if I just reroute the audio. Okay, so as I'm pressing on there, hopefully you can see the light flashing on there. Let's just change the sound a bit. Okay, so I can sequence the MB33 on channel 2. Channel 3 is the TB03. I've just turned that up. Okay, so when I press on play on there, it's going to play the sounds from the TB03. Channel 4 is, I can't remember. Let me refer to my trusty notebook. This is why I have to write everything down, because it gets so complicated. I can't remember. Channel 4 is the Volca bass. Okay, so that's playing this over here. Again, just change the filter. You can hear it's playing that. Channel 5 is the mini log. So this is the sound we've got on the mini log, which I can play from channel 5 over here. Channel 6 is playing the modular, I believe. Can't remember now if it is or not. Let me just check that. Yes, it is playing the modular. I've also got the System 8 receiving some stuff on channel 6 at the moment. So when I'm pressing on here, it's actually the deeper sound is the modular. Okay, which you've just changed on there. And it's also playing a sound off the System 8. So again, you can just choose whichever MIDI channel you want and it will play it. Got nothing on 7, so 7 is spare. 8 is playing the mini log, so you can hear that sound on the mini log. Play it on there. Got nothing on 9. 10 will give me access to the sounds of the TR8, I think. There we go. Okay, you got to just get your, because I have usually have this set sometimes on like a scale thing. So if it's only like on C major, it's going to miss some of the notes out. So you just got to work out where your sounds are. But yeah, channel 10, I can sequence the TR8 if I wish. Obviously that gives me, because on the Electribe you can do 4 bars rather than the TR8 where you can only have 2 bars if you string together pattern A and B. So that's quite useful for doing that way around. I've got nothing on 11, nothing on 12, nothing on 13, and nothing on 14. 15 is the Volca keys. Although that's, I've got to sort the cable out with that, it's gone a little bit weird. And then 16 should be, was originally, because I changed this earlier actually to do it with the modular. 16, I originally had to control the System 8. But obviously I can set, basically whatever I set the hardware to, whatever channel, it corresponds to these pads on here. And then the ones that don't control any hardware, I can then use those to play the internal sounds from the Electribe as well. So it gives me great flexibility, and basically, like I say, the idea is I control everything from the Electribe, because obviously I've only got one pair of hands, I can't play everything, so I like to play some stuff live, and then sequence other stuff, and then that's how I kind of write my tracks, and then I will record those sequences into my laptop, into Ableton Live, and then edit and arrange them and so on into my tracks. So hopefully that makes sense. If you've got any questions or comments, please stick them in the box below. If you guys have got any suggestions for any future videos you would like to see, then please give me a shout. You know, whether it's specific tutorials on any of these gear, any of this gear, or just music tech and recording and playing live and stuff in general, then put a suggestion in the box and I'll see what I can do. Okay, thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.